The illusion of preservation. How a misguided myth keeps indigenous peoples trapped in the past. For centuries, indigenous peoples across the Americas, including Brazil, have been viewed through a distorted lens, one shaped by romanticism, paternalism, and ignorance. A misguided belief persists that to preserve their culture, indigenous communities must remain untouched by modernity, as though frozen in time, exactly as European colonizers first encountered them in the 16th century. This belief glorifies an imaginary version of indigenous life that never truly existed, and more dangerously, has been used to justify denying these communities access to essential resources such as clean water, electricity, sanitation, education, and healthcare. This essay explores the roots and consequences of this false notion, and argues that true cultural preservation must respect indigenous autonomy, dignity, and rights, allowing communities to choose how they wish to integrate tradition and modernity. The myth of the frozen Indian. Part of the romanticized narrative portrays indigenous peoples as pure, natural, untouched by civilization, living in harmony with nature, isolated from progress, and uninterested in technology or modern life. To many outsiders, this image is poetic and almost sacred. However, to the communities themselves, it often becomes a prison. This misconception ignores the reality that culture is not static. Cultures evolve, adapt, and change over time. Indigenous peoples are not relics. They are living societies with agency, intelligence, and the right to choose their way of life. They are not museum exhibits, but human beings capable of deciding whether they want solar panels, clean water systems, or internet access in their villages. Culture is not a cage. It is a living identity. Culture is not something that dies when its people gain access to electricity or sanitation. It is a living identity, expressed through language, beliefs, rituals, and ancestral knowledge, none of which disappears simply because someone uses a cell phone or attends school. In fact, many indigenous leaders argue that access to technology actually strengthens cultural preservation. With smartphones, they can record traditional songs, document oral histories, and teach children their native language through digital platforms. Electricity powers cultural centers, protects sacred artifacts, and helps communities communicate with the outside world to defend their land rights. Progress does not erase culture, it can help protect it. The harmful consequences of the preservation myth. The notion that indigenous communities should remain authentic by refusing modern amenities has serious and damaging consequences. In reality, denying technology, electricity, clean water, and healthcare leads to high rates of preventable disease and child mortality due to lack of sanitation and medicine, malnutrition and contamination, especially in areas affected by illegal mining or logging, limited access to education, affecting future generations' ability to preserve culture and assert legal rights. Broken communication, making it harder for indigenous peoples to connect with other communities and advocate for protection of their territory. Increased vulnerability to poverty, exploitation, and environmental crimes. Therefore, what is falsely claimed to be cultural preservation is, in reality, a denial of human rights. Modernity, as a tool, not an enemy. In recent years, numerous indigenous communities across Brazil and Latin America have shown that modernity and tradition are not enemies. In the Xingu region, solar panels power schools where children learn both Portuguese and their native language. In the Amazon, drones are used to protect forests from invaders. Some indigenous groups use GPS and satellite imagery to monitor deforestation and support lawsuits against land grabbers. Elders still teach traditional medicine, spirituality, and respect for nature. But now, these teachings can also be shared and preserved through videos, digital archives, and community museums. Rather than losing their identity, these communities are demonstrating that culture can thrive in the digital age. Free will. The right to choose. The core of the issue is not whether indigenous peoples should adopt modern technology. It is that they should have the freedom to choose. True recognition and respect come from acknowledging their autonomy to adapt, refuse, negotiate, or reinvent traditions. Some groups may choose to live in full harmony with nature without modern tools. Others may want clean water, internet access, and higher education while preserving their language and rituals. Neither choice makes them more or less indigenous. The problem arises when outsiders decide for them, either forcing them to modernize or forcing them to stay primitive for the sake of nostalgia or tourism. The role of law and society. Brazil's Constitution of 1988 marks a historic moment, recognizing indigenous peoples not as wards of the state, but as citizens with full rights, including the right to self-determination, education, healthcare, land, and cultural protection. However, laws alone are not enough. Society must abandon stereotypes and understand that indigenous life does not have to mirror the past to be authentic. Their identity is not defined by whether they use fire or electricity, or whether they wear traditional clothing or jeans. Identity is rooted in belonging, ancestry, spirituality, and language, not in the rejection of modernity. A new vision, indigenous peoples as guardians of the future. Rather than seeing indigenous people as prisoners of the past, we must begin to recognize them as guardians of the future. Their ancestral knowledge contains valuable solutions for environmental protection, sustainable agriculture, resource preservation, and climate balance. When combined with modern technology, this wisdom becomes even more powerful. Imagine indigenous cartographers mapping sacred sites using drones. Imagine shamans teaching traditional medicine through digital platforms. Imagine indigenous entrepreneurs selling sustainably crafted goods through online marketplaces. These are not fantasies. They are already happening. A path forward. Dignity, rights, and dialogue. The path forward is not to impose an artificial idea of authenticity, but to ensure dignity and opportunity. It means guaranteeing sanitation, electricity, education, healthcare, and internet, but also protecting territory, languages, spiritual traditions, and community autonomy. It means replacing paternalism with partnership. It means seeing indigenous peoples not as symbols, but as collaborators, teaching the world about respect, resilience, and coexistence. Conclusion: tradition and future can walk together. Preserving culture does not mean living without water, without light, without comfort, without dignity. It means living with identity, memory, and freedom. The greatest mistake is believing that progress destroys tradition. In truth, when communities are empowered to choose their own path, progress can strengthen tradition. When indigenous peoples have access to the same rights as all citizens, their culture is not threatened, it is protected. Indigenous identity is not lost in the digital world. It survives, adapts, and grows. Because culture does not die when it changes. It dies when it is silenced.